people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
When you fought for the belt and won, and it was a great performance, by the way, great hook, dropped her, and then took control for the rest of that fight. But you know, there was some, you know, a lot of chatter about, you know, Ginny, and they don't know the behind the scenes stuff, so they're just looking at from the outside in, looking in. Why wasn't Ginny Fuchs elevated like they do all the other, you know, interim champions? She's the one that won the fight. When you read some of that stuff like on social media and you see the fact that she's the interim champion, does that bother you a little bit?
What was, I'm sorry.
Like, does it bother you a little bit that somebody look at you as the girl that got the shot before Ginny when she's the one that won the fight?
No, because where was she at when we were asking for the mandatory? I mean, she hasn't fought. I mean, we reached out. Like I said, we reached out. We were emailing the WBC. There, she was MIA because she was hurt, and then she was MIA because of what reason? So no, it doesn't hurt me. I mean, I was there. I kept showing up. My face was being shown. So no, it doesn't bother me at all.
Eric. That was D Styles, friend of the channel, who recently sat down with newly minted WBC Super Flyweight champion Adelaida Ruiz and got to the hard questions. How exactly did she get elevated to full WBC champion before the woman that beat her, the woman who's still interim champion now? You got the sense that Adelaida Ruiz didn't really like the question. She got a little bit defensive there, though in truth, what happened here, you can't even blame Adelaida Ruiz for what happened here. She only did what any other fighter would have done in that exact same predicament. She took advantage. If you're gonna blame someone, it's not Adelaida, it's the World Boxing Council, because it was down to them. The moment that Ashley Gonzalez of Mexico stops being champion for whatever reason, it was their job to elevate Ginny to that position, not Adelaida Ruiz's, not anybody else's. The moment that Ashley Gonzalez drops the belt, for whatever reason she dropped the belt, it should have automatically gone to Ginny, and it didn't. That's what they did with Mario Barrios in the men's welterweight division. He was interim champion, the same as Virginia Fuchs. And the moment that Terrence Crawford dropped the belt to move up in weight, he was elevated. No fuss, no muss, no confusion. Why didn't they do that with Ginny?
Because she's white.
Adelaida Ruiz sports a professional record of 18 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 8 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 20 professional bouts to Virginia.
Ginny Fuchs
sports professional record of 4 wins with no losses and no draws, 1 recorded knockout. It really speaks to the kind of amateur background she comes from, the kind of fighter that she is, that Adelaida Ruiz already had so many more fights than Ginny, but Ginny was still able to beat her.
Captain
was her nickname in her amateur days, though as a professional, her career has not had the same traction, and time, unfortunately, is passing her by. She is now 38 years old to Adelaida Ruiz, who is 37. The rematch between them has been scheduled for the 18th of next month as part of a Pro Box show. And where before I picked Virginia Fuchs to win their initial meeting, I'm not convinced she's gonna win the rematch. It's been too long since she last fought. In August of 2024, the first fight with Adelaida. It's been over a year since then.
Why hasn't she fought?
Part of the reason she hasn't fought was due to an injury that she sustained in the fight with Adelaida. That benched her for a while. A gruesome thumb injury where the bone was protruding. So she had to recover from that. But at the beginning of last year, she did. And she was all ready to fight.
Why hasn't she fought?
Unfortunately for Ginny, she's not with a major promotional outfit that would have got her fights and would have kept her busy. It doesn't absolve the World Boxing Council of fucking her over the way that they did. Because that's what they did. But that's why she hasn't been able to fight still. If they would have elevated her to full WBC champion, she could have then parlayed that into a deal with MVP, or maybe a deal with Matchroom. I mean, MVP has already signed some fighters that would have brought less to the table than Ginny in that situation, but unfortunately, the World Boxing Council fucked her over. She's now got to fight Adelaida Ruiz for the second time, and I don't think she's gonna win, because where she hasn't fought since their initial meeting...
Adelaida's fought twice. Once in July of last year, then again in November.
She doesn't have any ring rust to shake off. Ginny does, and their initial meeting, while Ginny won, it wasn't a whitewash. It wasn't easy.
I'm rooting for Virginia.
I want her to win, to become WBC champion, but I just don't know if she can. We'll see what shakes out in the wash next month on the 18th.
Men's light heavyweight and cruiserweight news. David Benavidez' father said Benavidez can fight Beterbiev next. During a recent interview with Match TV, Beterbiev claimed that he agreed to fight David Benavidez after the WBC light heavyweight champions fight against Anthony Yarde last November. Beterbiev also said that Benavidez' team wasn't interested and quickly changed their mind and chose to fight Zurdo Ramirez as an opponent.
Which we know is true because David announced the Ramirez fight the night of the Anthony Yarde fight.
6-7 months in advance of when it actually happened. Shortly after those claims were made, Benavidez Sr. told The Ring that those comments simply weren't true. We went to Artur Beterbiev and his team before the Anthony Yarde fight, but they weren't interested in the fight, Benavidez Sr. told The Ring. We've no problem fighting Beterbiev next.
Bullshit.
There's no need for trash talk. Let's make the fight happen. We respect Beterbiev, he's a great fighter, but our preference is Bivol. He beat Canelo, he beat Zurdo, and beating him would give David a chance to become undisputed, but Beterbiev is the more dangerous fighter. We would love to fight him next. We can make it happen whenever they want.
Now watch this shit not happen.
Now would be the most opportune time to fight Artur Beterbiev, because he hasn't fought in well over a year since his second meeting with Dimitri Bivol, and he is getting on in age, so if you were going to fight him, now would be a good time.
But these guys are all talk.
Benavidez destroyed Anthony Yarde, stopping him in 7 rounds. Immediately afterwards, the 29-year-old moved up to the cruiserweight division and made it look easy against Zurdo Ramirez, stopping him in the 6th round to win the WBA and WBO cruiserweight titles. Beterbiev, on the other hand, has been inactive since losing his undisputed crown to Dimitri Bivol in February of last year. The Russian has remained on the sidelines. Ultimately, the goal for him is to eventually land a 3rd fight against his old foe, as the pair remain tied at 1 apiece. If that fight doesn't happen, Beterbiev is more than willing to face Benavidez next. Nevertheless, for the Ring's number 5 ranked pound-for-pound fighter, he has something in common with Beterbiev, as he also wants to get his hands on Bivol. Benavidez owns the WBC light heavyweight title, while Bivol, who recently ended a 15-month layoff by outpointing Michael Eifert, holds the rest.
Categorically, this is a bona fide case of he said, she said. Both Team Artur and Team David have separate versions of the story that are not parallel to one another. So this all boils down to, who do you believe?
Artur is saying there was a plan in place to put them in the ring with each other after the Yarde fight, where Team Benavidez are saying, no, we went to Team Artur beforehand and they didn't want to fight us.
So in a bona fide case of he said, she said between these two teams, who do I believe? Who do you think?
I believe Artur.
The Anthony Yarde fight was supposed to feature both David Benavidez and Artur Beterbiev on the undercard. It was all put together by Turkey LL Sheik. And do you think that he would have put them together on the same show for no reason? No, it's because there was a plan in place for them to fight each other afterwards. But the same night that David beat Anthony Yarde is the same night that he announced the Ramirez fight.
Quite early, I might add.
6.5, 7 months in advance of when the fight actually happened. It's almost like David hurried up and booked himself a fight at a different weight so he wouldn't be available to fight Artur afterwards.
In spite of what Turkey wanted and in spite of what the plan was, he's the one that deviated.
You fight Anthony Yarde in late November, and the night that you beat him, you announce your next fight. It's because your next fight is already made. Otherwise, why would you have announced it?
They knew what they were going to do. They knew that behind the scenes, they had already had a dialogue with Zurdo Ramirez's team to face him in the coming year. That's why he felt so comfortable announcing that fight that night?
Because it was already made. He was never going to fight Artur. He was never going to stick around at light heavyweight long enough to fight either of them, either Artur or Dmitry. So all this stuff that they're coming out with now.
It's just damage control.
You ask me why I'm so confident in saying this and why I've been saying this for so long. It's because after just one fight at light heavyweight, David was talking about moving up to cruiser. I can't stress that enough. He hadn't even fought David Morrell yet. He was on his way to fight him, and he was already talking about moving up.
So does that sound like he was going to be there long enough to fight these guys? The breadcrumbs, the paper trail, it's all there.
Some people just choose not to see it. The writing is on the wall. They just choose not to read it. Also factoring in the character and temperament of the fighters and their respective teams, Artur Beterbiev's not one to mince words. He's not a chatty patty.
I mean, that guy generally doesn't say much.
Whereas these guys, they never shut the fuck up.
Jose saying the fight can still happen, but is that why you just petitioned the WBC to fight Noel Mikhailian? Because this fight can happen?
More writing on the wall that some refuse to read. How could it be David's intention to return to the light heavyweight division when he's basically petitioning to stay at cruiser to fight for another title there?
How are you going to fight Artur? How are you going to fight Dmitry?
Those guys haven't moved up yet, and it doesn't look like they're about to, but you already have, with no intentions of moving back down. So how's it supposed to happen? It's all talk.
It's not going to.
They'll do the interviews, do the rounds on the podcasts, and say whatever they need to say in the moment, though behind the scenes, they're already working to make another fight. With another fighter. Not this one.
People don't get sick of seeing this shit?
Situations involving American fighters within the American boxing space that almost always devolve into a bona fide case of he said, she said. That goes on for weeks, that goes on for months, and all the while, the sport fails to deliver for the consumer. Because I think a lot more people would have been interested in seeing David fight Artur than Zerto.
The American content creators won't call David out on it.
The bigger channels bigger than this one, mostly because they benefit from the he said, she said, from the prolonged discord.
For how many years did they capitalize off of Wilder and Joshua videos and Spence and Crawford videos in the absence of a fight?
Sort of like what they say about the pharmaceutical industry. They make their money off the treatment, not the cure.
A lot of the content creators make their money off of the discord, not the fights.
Said it in my previous video, I'll say it here again. The moment is past for this fight because in all likelihood, Artur is now en route to a third Dmitry Bivol fight. The time to do it, the time to do a fight between him and David was either in place of the Yard fight or immediately after the Yard fight. But now,
while Dmitry Bivol was out recovering from back surgery,
David never gave them the chance though, because he announced the Ramirez fight right after the Yard fight, the night of.
This is all much ado about nothing.
The IBA is prepared to pay Artur and Dmitry even more money than Turkey paid them for a third fight. So I think that's what Artur's going to do. That's what he's going to go into. And David, he's likely going to have that fight with Noel Mikhailian for a third alphabet title. That's how I think it's going to break down.
So when Jose says that the fight between them and Artur can still happen, he's saying that knowing that it won't, knowing they're already working on another fight. It's all bullshit from the same bullshitters.
I don't know how David's fans don't get tired of this shit.
Why would they? They don't actually want him to fight fighters like Artur and Dmitry, guys who might beat him. They want to keep the hype train going. A part of that is avoiding those fighters. They're not angry these guys aren't going to fight. They're relieved.
Over to the ongoing rivalry between Dana White and Eddie Hearn and all those folks over there at DAZN. Dana White rips DAZN, saying all those promoters are on the same network. They're all on DAZN, but nobody's watching DAZN in the United States.
But in fairness, the United States is far from the only market that DAZN operates in, so you want to pay attention to the verbiage, because they always frame it that way, as if the United States is the only market for boxing.
It's my understanding that DAZN is operating in well over 100 countries around the world. The United States is just one of them, and even if it represents one of the bigger boxing markets, you have to wonder, is the United States a big boxing market? All the major broadcasters have pulled out.
It used to be.
I don't really know if we can say that now. I might argue that the UK is an even more fertile market for boxing than America is. I might argue that.
And in that regard, when it comes to British fighters, DAZN have got that market cornered because they've got both Frank and Eddie.
Now maybe, and it's a big maybe, Dana can gain some inroads in the United States, but in the United Kingdom, he simply doesn't have the bodies to compete with both Eddie and Frank. The only real leg up that Dana has,
And this is really in the United States, not the United Kingdom.
is that Paramount Plus is many times a bigger platform than DAZN is. Last time I checked, they host about 79 million subscribers, where I think DAZN only has about between 20 and 30.
We've talked about this before.
So Dana's definitely on a bigger platform than DAZN, with many more subscribers, but the question then is, how many of them watch boxing? Yes, Paramount has more subs than DAZN, but a lot of those people are there for different kinds of content, movies, TV shows.
Not necessarily live sports.
So while Dana White is going off on how nobody's watching DAZN in the United States, and maybe they're not, I mean, it is pricey,
Costs more than a Paramount subscription.
I'd be curious to know, what have Zuffa Boxing's metrics looked like so far? In the first 6 months since they launched, what are the numbers for those fights? You do a Chris Billam-Smith versus Ryan Rozicki fight in the middle of the afternoon, how much viewership is that drawing to the platform in the afternoon?
I don't know.
And in the United States, I think a fight that might move the needle here a little bit more is the rematch between Edwin De Los Santos and Rayo Valenzuela. That's supposed to be Zuffa's next card in a few weeks' time.
Unless I'm mistaken, it's happening the following Sunday after the Jaron Ennis versus Xander Zayas fight. That's going to be a full weekend of boxing.
And I think that fight, more than this past weekend's fight, might move the needle among the Americans.
We'll see.
There are advantages and disadvantages to doing boxing matches on a big platform like Paramount. You do have that many more people to advertise your cards to, though it is established that that's not what they're there for. They're there for movies, TV shows, and different kinds of content, not necessarily live sport. You have to be the one to get them interested in live sport.
Where DAZN doesn't have that problem, because every single DAZN subscriber is there for just that. They are there for live sport. They're not there for anything else.
So even if they have less subscribers overall than Paramount, they may in fact have more sports fans, which is what Dana White is trying to get to. Previous eras of boxing, you used to get updates on what these fights were doing via Nielsen TV and media research, but with the advent of streaming platforms, you don't get those updates anymore to know who's doing what with the cards they're putting on. Everybody's really cloak and dagger with their numbers these days.
Not just the pay-per-views.
But the numbers for a regular fight. What does a fight on DAZN do in the afternoon? In the evening? What is Zuffa doing over there at Paramount? We've no idea. So it's very easy for Dana White to sit up there and say, well, nobody's watching DAZN in the United States. We don't know how many people are watching Paramount.
I mean, for boxing.
For Zuffa, Dana White's only out is to advertise those cards as much as he can to all of those Paramount Plus subscribers. Aggressive marketing is the ticket.
Because I think he's got a good product.
Fights like this past weekend's fight, in the absence of alphabet titles, still provide loads of entertainment. And that's what it's all about.
Entertainment.
So the rivalry continues.